So if you're wanting to improve your mental health, maybe keep control of your anxiety, and perhaps even improve your memory, there's a key little area of the brain that's really critical at doing all of these functions. So I'm going to give you some quick little tricks on how you can improve that using exercise. But before we get down to that path, I just want to explain to you exactly what I'm talking about, because the hippocampus is an amazing structure in the brain that is not really well understood by a lot of people and is very, very rarely spoken about. So your hippocampus is named after a structure which is basically like a seahorse. That's kind of how it looks, your hippocampus. And it sits in the temporal lobe of the brain. That, if you imagine the brain looking like a bit of a boxing glove in this little side area there, and it has some really key important roles. The first one that it has is to actually turn stress off. So this is really key. So stress basically is all about perception. It's all about the way we perceive things in life. So for instance, if you perceive that you're under attack, this creates stress. If you perceive that you're about to lose something, that creates stress. So whenever there's a threat to our life, whether it's perceived or actually under attack, this tends to drive stress. Now, how that system basically works is a little area in the central area of your brain in here called your hypothalamus. And it basically gets all this information from all these centers that says, hey, there's a threat. It sends a message out to a little thing that hangs off the bottom of your brain down there called your pituitary gland. And it sends a message all the way down to a set of glands that sit on your kidneys called your adrenal glands. And these things are really critical. So what your adrenal glands basically do is your adrenal glands are responsible for looking after the production of your stress hormones themselves. So these are critical for us. So these stress hormones are the ones that help regulate your hormones, such as your cortisol, DHEA, that actually regulate stress themselves. But the other thing they do is they're also the precursors for your reproductive hormones too. So once this cortisol hormone has been released from there, guess where it goes? Bang, it comes in and hits your hippocampus. The main reason for that is we need to understand what the actions of it are. So as we said before, main actions, turns the stress off. So once it gets hit, this is kind of like a biofeedback mechanism. So it can send a message back across to your hypothalamus to say, hey, we've received your stress hormones. Yes, mission's been initiated. We're under control. We're doing what we're designed to do. The second thing it's all about spatial awareness. So this is how do you navigate through things, which is the next step. It's all navigation. So let's imagine that we're going back 50,000 years ago when we last had a major neurological involvement, and we're walking around, we walk into a lion's den, and as we get there we realise we're about to get under attack. We want to get out of there as quickly as we can. So what we do is we turn around and we start running as fast as we can to get out of there. But in order to get out of there safely, we need to be able to navigate through things, make sure we don't run into anything else, and make sure we're aware of our surroundings so we can get through as quickly as possible. So we need our spatial awareness and our navigation skills to be lit up like a Christmas tree at that point in time. Okay? So in order to do that, we need stimulation. So these stress hormones stimulate the hippocampus in order to improve that level of functioning so you can achieve that really, really quickly. The other thing that it does as well is it looks after your memory. And when we're talking about memory, what we're really talking about is short to long-term memory conversion and also visual memory. So for those of you who have seen the movie 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore, this is really what that she was suffering with, is hippocampal problems, an inability to long-term retain information. So when we're looking at this and the visual side of things, it's the same process we're talking about. So now you've run away from that lines area. Now you want to remember where you went so that you never go back. And your two key memories from that time are visually what you saw. So you remember all the surroundings heading into it, and then the experience itself. So this is really where the hippocampus comes into its own, because it's all about keeping us alive. The problem is, like we say with a lot of these different hormones, stress hormones break tissue down. Okay, they're catabolic, they break tissue down. And no different with the hippocampus itself. When you stimulate an area of the brain over and over, eventually it starts degrading and it can actually shrink in size and actually lose volume. And this is where chronic stress tends to play havoc with all of these things. So the longer you're stressed for, the harder it is to get out of stress. A lot of people will comment that when they're stressed, they'll start bumping into things like knocking coffee tables, bumping into doorways. They'll start getting lost. Reading maps becomes harder and harder. They'll start getting disorientated when they head into areas, and the memory starts going downhill as well. So these are key signs that the hippocampus is really taking a pounding, which is basically all about this mechanism breaking those tissues down within the brain itself. So how do we deal with this? How does exercise come about with this? Because if we understand that this is all about turning the stress off, then we can also understand that it plays a key role in anxiety. And there's some good evidence now coming out showing that hippocampal changes are associated with anxiety as well. And also sleep, day-night rhythms are often tied in with this as well, insomnia patterns and the like. So one of the key hormones that actually reverses all the damage. Let's go back and just think about it. We're now in our situation, we walk into these lines then, we've now taken off, running off from it, we've had all this hormone come up. Our natural instinct right then is to run. So guess what running actually does? The aerobic activity increases a hormone in the brain called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. Where is BDNF most concentrated in the human brain? In our friend the hippocampus over here. Why would you want high levels of BDNF in the hippocampus? It's pretty simple. Lines then, we found it. Huge stress levels have come up, we hit the hippocampus, it does damage, we run to get away from it. As we run, we elevate BDNF and we repair tissue again. So we can start seeing that exercise has a really key role in improving and stimulating growth within our hippocampus itself, which can in turn help our anxiety, help our memory, and all these other things if we're doing it regularly enough. So how much is enough? So I went through this about a week or so ago. I put a video up on it. Have a look at it and watch it. Really the problem with this is a little bit of exercise will stimulate this area. A lot of high intensity exercise doesn't really do it because it becomes stressful. So it's all about trying to keep the exercise at a manageable level and not overdo things so that you're stressing your system out. And I covered that a couple of weeks ago when we spoke about aerobic activity and using your heart rate monitor to regulate your effort levels and training regimes. But a small amount of exercise every single day is really critical at trying to get your aerobic levels, trying to get your BDNF levels up to improve your hippocampus. If you then use your hippocampus after you've increased your BDNF levels as well, it has another profound effect at trying to improve it. So how can we use it? Look at navigation, look at memory gains, all these type of things. So the more of these things you use after you've had your exercise, the more likely we are to stimulate growth into the hippocampus itself. Okay guys, so that's a nice little introduction into exercise, memory and anxiety, the hippocampus. We're keeping things really, really simple. I know I've jumped over a million different steps here and a million different influences with things that may or may not contribute to this. But just want to keep it really simple and just understand that exercise has a huge, profound effect on the hippocampus and on the human brain, which is really critical if you want to improve your emotional state and you also want to improve your memory as well. Anyway guys, if you have any questions on this, just post them up. Otherwise, send me a message directly and I'll get you the information as soon as I possibly can. Speak to you soon. Remember, it's all about adding life to your years, and we'll catch up in the next vid. See you guys.